that was all technology people not really listening and not knowing what the business wanted. So, what drives me and what drives Comunet is that connection of business and technology. So Comunet itself, it's just under 50 people, head office in Adelaide. We service clients around the country and quite a few overseas. So we do a lot in advice as well as traditional services in IT.
Beautiful. Thank you. Eclectic indeed. I love it. Clint, can I get you to unmute yourself? And if you want to tell us who you are, what you do, and what you love about what you do.
Yep. Good morning. My name's Clint Adams. I'm the director or managing director or CEO, depending on what term you want to use, depending on what part of the world you're in, of Waterpro and Railways. Waterpro is an 11-year-old business specialising in the supply of irrigation equipment to the trade, retail, homeowners, up to large commercial. We're in Kent Town in South Australia. We've been here for about 7 years, but the business is 11 years old. About 10 months ago, I don't even know what month we're in. So September last year, I settled on a business called Railways, which is at Ranella, which is about 40 minutes south of where I am now. That business is a 40-year-old business, and they supply landscape supplies to the trade and the retail. So same market segments just mentioned, but completely different product mix, different demographic, different team, existing team, all that jazz. And I've got a little fertilizer brand that I've started about 3 years ago called Lawn Hub as well, which we sell out of Waterpro and online. So that's me.
Beautiful. Not busy in any way. Excellent. Thanks, Clint. And Brad, can you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do, and what you love about what you do.
Sure. Thanks, Ali. I'm General Manager at National Pharmacies, which is a wonderful South Australian organisation born nearly 110 years ago. I'm not originally from South Australia. In fact, I've only moved here 6 years ago. I started with National Pharmacies in Victoria as State Manager about 12 years ago. Prior to that, I've spent a lot of time working in large organisations such as RACV, which is like the RAA, worked for Qantas and Australia Post. So I've been across a variety of insurance, banking, logistics, parcels, pharmaceuticals. Now I've run my own business in the IT space, not as a technician such as Alexei, but more as a sales and marketing role. So what do I love about National Pharmacies? The fact that it's a mutual. We're here for our members. We've got 270,000 members to look after. And I've always loved multi-site retailing, and that's what attracted me back to working in this sort of organisation. So one of the portfolios I look after is people. So that's obviously very much people and culture is what we're going to be talking about today. So thanks for the invitation, Ali.
No, thank you. That's excellent. Thanks, Brad. So thank you, Alexei and Clint and Brad, for your time today. I really do appreciate it. And I think our attendees and whoever's watching this on the replay can definitely agree that there is a wealth of knowledge and experience both across many, many industries and in terms of leadership as well. So I think today is going to be an absolute corker, and I'm very grateful for your time. So we're talking today about Lighthouse leadership, so employee engagement, expectations and empathy. So Brad, as the GM of National Pharmacies, you lead staff across a number of different sites, across a number of different states even. Plus there's a team in head office and is the one at Fulham as well.
Yes.
How do you keep them all engaged, particularly right now when it is more important than ever?
So I guess the first thing and foremost, and it's with any business and it never really changes, is communication is the key to everything. If you ever run into team dynamic issues or business problems, you can normally trace it back to how well you're communicating. So in this current scenario, and some of you may be aware that we also had a case of COVID-19 of an employee at a store. The key to handling these things was communication. So in terms of how we've moved people before that particular crisis was to communicate everybody's roles. So what were we expecting from our store teams? Obviously, we're still trading. It's a health service. We were aware that overseas that the only retailing that would be open in many countries such as Italy was pharmacy and supermarkets. So it was very clear early on that our store teams were going to play a frontline role to support people in South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales. So we clearly articulated what we expected of the retail store teams. The next thing we did with anyone in a support role, where we could get them out of, I'll call it harm's way. So we had a large team in the CBD. Now that's obviously got lots of travellers, visitors. So the first thing we did was move people out of that office and get them to operate remotely. Then you talked about our Fulham site, which is a training centre where we've had people that either couldn't set up from home for whatever reason, technology challenges or other, or they were a team that were handling telephony from our customers. We've set them up at the Kidman Park Training Centre there. So we've provided tools, hardware, focused on what people needed, kept the dialogue open about what they need, and then more importantly, ongoing, and we'll probably get to it later, but things such as regular, we use Microsoft Teams, which is the first for many people, so it's been an excellent tool to use. There's a lot of challenge around people working in isolation. We have a number of people in our teams who thrive in a teamwork face-to-face environment because they live by themselves or they're single parents. So I think some of them are finding big challenges. So we've actually upped the communication in that way and kept them connected.
Yeah, beautiful. I think one of the key takeaways there for any type of crisis or any type of change that's happening within an organisation or within a team is being really clear about what it is that's actually changing and also explaining what the expectations are for employees moving forward. So I love that that's something that's already part of National Pharmacies and what you do. You mentioned about the challenge that some people have working in isolation, and I 100% get it. I'm an extrovert. I'm not okay being away from my people. But what types of things, like what would you say is sort of the biggest challenge that's facing your staff at the moment in terms of that isolation and working from home?
The value of if you're facing any challenges or issues with work itself, personal or work related, the ability to bounce off people right next to you certainly helps productivity and a feeling of accomplishment. So we've really encouraged this sort of informal chat process like we're doing here today, but we've reminded people that if you're getting a video call from someone in your team, make your best efforts to take that call, because it's like them leaning over the partition to have a chat. You never know who's really in need. So that's certainly been a focus for us. Little things on a personal sense. I set up with my team, our business would probably normally have a social drinks for an hour once a month on a Friday. I got a whole bunch of people together on Easter Thursday from 4:00, and we set something up where we said, bring a drink and bring a plate, and everyone got to show their food or their bunny ears, or they introduced their kids to the team. We met kids and partners that we'd never normally meet through Microsoft Teams, and it was amazing that I put it on for half an hour, and I think some people stayed online for an hour and a half. So I think that was leaving people feeling like there's a new way of meeting others besides the colleagues in the office. So, and they felt very connected.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I think it is those little informal channels that actually do make up the culture and the engagement within your teams. And I don't think you're alone in Friday night drinks online taking on a whole new, I guess it's going to be a new thing. I think it's a lot easier to get people to catch up socially online than it is, trying to find a park and where you're going to go. So yeah, watch this space. I think
of course we don't drink driving, so it's always a very safe way of
very
going.
Responsible. Yeah, excellent. That's really good. Thanks, Brad. So Lex, you've got a great culture at Comunet. You and I have worked together many years ago, so I've been keeping my eye on what's been happening at Comunet and know a few of the guys and girls there. With your team at Comunet, they're usually co-located, so all in the same office. And perhaps now that with the COVID-19, what I've noticed is that you're doing some really different things with your teams to really keep the engagement alive. What are some of the things that you're doing as part of Comunet's engagement strategy for this isolation period?
Yeah, look, thanks, Ali. Look, to me, it's very similar to Brad's commentary. It really is around communication and connection and humanity. We very early on in the piece identified that there was some risk coming before the lockdowns and pulled out our pandemic response plans, all the big formal things you have from risk, and created a plan that was for staff and for our clients. You say we're co-located, it's interesting. We have 100 odd clients in the state. So at any given time, I'd be lucky that 40% of the people are in the office anyhow. We're always out at client sites or working from home. We've been using Teams and the Microsoft Modern Workplace suite for a couple of years and have been heavily promoting it. So we were in a nice place from a technology position to be able to move immediately to half a workforce from home, to keeping some segregation so that if we had a COVID case, we could still provide support, a whole bunch of basic things. But what we identified probably week 1, week 2, when we moved from a mandated 50% out of the office to 5 people out of 50 sitting in the office, because if anyone else wanted to, they could work remotely, was the casual conversations that happen from leadership all day, every day. And, we sit in open plan and you don't necessarily think about, there's some old textbooks around management by walking around, but it's not that formal. It's that you touch base with people in a lunchroom, in a coffee room, and over a walk down to the local supermarket, whatever it comes to. And that became a real miss. The teams, similar to National Pharmacies, put in place very early some social catch-ups, some drinks. But for me, it was that continuing connection with all staff. So all of my teams that do daily stand-ups, I do the same with my leadership team. We see each other every morning and we talk about not usually operational matters, how are people feeling, how's their mental health at home, are they dealing okay with kids, what's going on with the Department of Education, how are their teams feeling. But 4 or 5 times a week through the week, I jump into each of the team meetings to really just have some of that banter and chatter in the office, to check in on people's mental health and well-being at home. It's funny running an organization, have your own kids at home and all those stresses and challenges, but you feel like you've got your other family, which is work, and being able to see them and listen to them and know them, to see those small changes. It's big mental health days, are you okay day, all of those bits and pieces, but it's more now than ever that we need to continue to ask that and look for those little signs on body language, and then send a message outside of the meeting. And I've had a few where I've had to reach out to an individual in the team that's reporting into one of my software leads or down under the delivery service desk and go, hey, look, you okay today? You're a bit off. What's going on? Do you need to take a break? And then remind people, forcefully in some instances, to go, no, you need to go and take 2 hours out this afternoon and go for a walk with your kids. I don't want to see you on Teams. I don't want to see you available. I don't want to see any comms. You look like you've been working 10, 12-hour days. Yes, they're broken up, but there's an exhaustion and a health issue kicking in. So during the first week or 2, it was harder because everyone was moving in and out. So it was daily formal comms. We put a bit of banter and fun into it. Every day was a Hitchhiker's Guide quote, starting with "Don't panic" through to a whole bunch of deeply considered ones. And I was really worried that we wouldn't get back to some normality of conversation because I was going to run out of quotes. But the weekly and fortnightly comms that are a bit more formal are good. Using live webinars, we have monthly all staff meetings. Some people call them town halls, and we've done that for a long time. But we still needed to maintain that. So I actually set up our normal big meeting space, our incubator out the back, used our roof webcam, and actually stood there with my PowerPoint presentation and the conversation with 5 people in a room that's normally packed. Yeah. And we did a live telecast similar to this and allowed people then to converse. We opened up all the conversation after, and we had 40 or 50 people asking questions. So it was really finding, it wasn't the tools that made a difference. It was remembering that the day-to-day had to feel the same, even though you were disconnected physically. We didn't want to be disconnected socially.
Yeah, beautiful. So if you've got a pen handy, I think that's really important. It's just remembering that those little social interactions are what is the main ingredient to building trust within your teams and making sure that you're still showing up in a way that's not always planned and not always a meeting. Now, Lex, you talked about a stand-up, which is agile. I just wanted you to unpack a stand-up, because I think stand-up's a beautiful thing that anyone can adapt in their own workplace, and I think it's a really good way to start the day. But can you expand on what a stand-up is?
Sure. So a stand-up is really a daily check-in, and it's purposefully never longer than 15 minutes. It's time-bound so that people focus on immediacy. What happened yesterday that was good? We don't want to hear about everything that happened yesterday. We don't want to hear about everything that's going to happen today, but it's really an opportunity for everyone in a team. Ideally, it's 8 to 10 people tops that you go, this is what I did yesterday that I was achieved, I was proud of. Here's the things I'm doing today, and very clearly, what are the things you need help with today? Are there things that are blocking you, that are challenging you? Because in that team environment, it allows everybody to go, actually, I've got a bit of spare time. I can help you out. So although the stand-ups are wrapped around agile project management and delivery, they're actually just about teams every day talking and being willing to help each other out and put their hand up and ask for help when they need it for whatever that help is.
Yeah.
Interestingly, because in the office we do them as stand-ups, we don't sit in a meeting room. On our calls in the morning, we actually change our webcam angles and we force everyone to stand up and step back. So we actually physically stand and maintain that piece, so it's not the normal sit at your desk perspective. So even those things, we've brought some, some consistency to what the practice is in the office.
Yeah, I think that's great. Change the energy, stand up and get people talking and ready for the day. Right. That's awesome. Thanks, Lex. So Clint, you're up next. Oh, have a drink. So at Waterpro, you've got something that's quite unique to your industry. I haven't seen this in any other organisations like yours, but your 12 immutable laws of Waterpro. So firstly, can you tell us what the laws are, and then how much you think these laws have shaped what Waterpro is? And remember about the bleep that we talked about.
I'm not sure I can tell you all of them. I promised you I wouldn't swear. So the 12 immutable laws of Waterpro, and they probably are of Railways now, they're kind of my business values, are the 12 rules that my team and I use when we're unsure about a decision or a direction that we need to take. So they're designed to be our moral compass, I guess, so that when we're in positions of stress or pressure, we refer back to those rules so that we make decisions based on things that we decided when we were calm and composed. It was something that I implemented, I don't know how long ago now, 5 or 6 years ago. And since we've had them, it's made the business, it's just made it clearer. It enables my staff to make decisions without coming to management. It enables management to make decisions without coming to me. And it means that provided we stick to the rules, that the business is a nicer place to work and we don't, repeat behaviors that have hurt us in the past. So those values are on my YouTube or Waterpro's YouTube channel. If anyone wants to take a look at them, I don't have a issue with swearing in my day-to-day life. So if you've got sensitive ears, maybe don't go look at it. But so we've had them and they've changed the way we operate, and my guys will reference them all the time now. And we have customers referencing them as well. And customers understand our rules and where we stand. And then if we deselect a customer, we can usually reference those rules and explain why.
Very good. Did you want to share them?
The rules?
Yeah.
So I can share the ones that come to the top of mind. So there's one. One is leopards and spots. Obviously, leopards don't change their spots. That's a reminder that if someone does something in a negative fashion towards you, that's likely they're going to do it again. If a staff member portrays certain behavior, they're unlikely to change. If you've had a staff member leave for certain reasons, or you've had to, have a staff member exit because the company needs them to, they're generally not going to change. So probably best not to go back down the same path. I don't know which words I'm not allowed to say. What else have we got? Do the right thing. That one's really important. So we make decisions around things. Whenever we're doing anything, we make decisions around doing the right thing. So an example might be if we overcharge a customer accidentally, even if there's no chance that the customer will find out, or if the charge is quite minor, we'll rectify that by contacting the client and crediting them the difference and apologizing. And most of the time they're like, oh, it doesn't matter, it was only this much, but we consider that doing the right thing. Make money right. So we don't want to rip people off. So if our staff saw an opportunity to make more money by doing something that wasn't right, then we don't like that. One of the fun ones might be no dry humping. That's designed to remind staff that if a high value target customer that we've been chasing comes into the shop, try to remain calm and don't have the whole team go out there like a chihuahua at the front door when a guest comes around and dry hump.
I didn't know where you were going to go with that. I'm glad you.
I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say. There's one of our rules that's pretty well known is no dicks allowed. That is a reminder that if a staff member, a supplier, or a customer acts like a dick to you or their staff or their wife or their kids, it's very likely they're going to do the same to you at some point. So We don't deal with people that act like that. And if someone acts like that once, leopards and spots, they're likely to do it again. So we either have a conversation with their superiors. If they're the business owner, it's generally not going to change. So then we make it less desirable to deal with us, and they generally deselect. What else have we got? I can't remember. They're written on the walls everywhere. We've got one, it's an F word, and it's a 4-letter word followed by the word normal. That's designed to remind people that I don't want us to be measured against normal, and that I hate when a staff member comes up and says, well, that's what the other companies are doing, or that's what these guys are doing. Or Ali asked me a question earlier today about something in the market, and I just don't know, because I'm not looking at what other people are doing, because I don't want to measure myself against normal, because then we're likely to be normal plus 7% good. I'd rather just do the best we can do. So, but yeah, there's more, but you can find them online. So. Yeah.
We'll find them online on the
go check out my YouTube channel.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
And I think, get a plug in.
Yeah, get a plug. With your 12 immutable laws, I think it's something that you hire by as well, don't you? Making sure that your teams
definitely.
are all aligned. So it's the values of Waterpro, but
they're in our Seek ads. So if when we're advertising for new employment, it's in the Seek ad to go look at that video. If you don't consider that you're in line with at least 8 to 10 of those values, no one's going to be completely in line with them. Then it's probably not worth applying for the job.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. So Lex, I mentioned that you and I have known each other for a long time. I was going to calculate it, but I don't think we should do that. But over that time, your career has changed and evolved, and you have had a mentor. I'm guessing you've had a mentor or a coach. I think we've talked about that before. But what I would like to know is, what do you think is one of the benefits of having a mentor or coach, and how it's helped your career over time?
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting relationship with a mentor, and having a mentee or two is an interesting relationship as well. It gives you an ability to speak freely with somebody once you have a trusted relationship about everything, about your own fears, your own limitations, the things that you think you may be doing really well or not, and getting some feedback that doesn't always happen in a leadership loop. Even more important as you climb the ranks into C-level roles or general management roles. Because as you climb, and being a CEO for a few years now, although I don't live by the "it's lonely at the top" adage, I'm friends with all of my team, and that makes conversations easier when they're challenging. There's a whole lot of pieces around that. There's still something that comes with title and seniority where people don't always tell you the truth. Although you aim to surround yourself with truth sayers and you aim to keep that open conversation, titles are hierarchical in our society, and to a lot of people they cause fear. So having someone that's a mentor and a coach, or even just a trusted advisor, that's not your board, that's not your shareholders, that's not your leadership team, it's not your partner at home, that can be brutally honest when you need it, keeps you humble, keeps you true to where you want to be, and true to what you're trying to do in your own life or career.
Yeah, beautiful. And do you try and cultivate that type of, interactions with your teams as well, with your staff?
Yeah, look,
around the honest feedback and
so I actively get a 360 for myself from my external partners, clients, as well as my board and my leadership team. So I get a chance to do a self-reflection and a reflection with my team, which is good. It keeps you an understanding of where the differences of how people see you versus how you see yourself. For my team, I don't force a 360, but a number of them have gone through a lot of leadership planning. Some of them have coaches assigned and mentors that we pay for as Comunet, because they're in their own career path. And some are just going through more formal, group settings, either through universities or through network groups, where they're given time out and the fees covered to go and be part of something that's not IT and not part of their career. So they do get to learn and grow and hear by speaking to other people that are in the same space.
Yeah, beautiful. And what do you think would be the most important lesson that you've learned out of the 360s, getting feedback?
Look, it's being honest with yourself. There's a lot of people, and it's easy to fall into that trap of aspiration, where you're always looking for what's next. You're always looking for more money, or you're looking for more authority, or you're looking for something else. And if you follow that path, there's a real risk that what you do is actually start creating a persona that's not who you are. And it's really hard to keep a persona from everybody, you would start to see very quickly that the things you think you're saying and think you're doing because you're trying to create it are actually being undermined by your general personality traits and who you are as a person. So when you see a 360, I've had the luxury of many years ago having a few and learning a few things, and I haven't seen them for a long time, but those first ones are really confronting, where what you think you're saying or doing is really positive or supportive, but other people are seeing it as talking down, or they're seeing it as micromanaging, and it really gives you something to self-reflect on. Be willing to self-reflect if you're going to 360. If you're going to come out of it defensive and that that's there, work on that first, because the first ones of those you can do early career are really rough.
Yeah, beautiful. So another note for the notepad: be willing to do the self-reflection and do the self-work and get those early runs on the board. Excuse me. Thank you for that, Lex. So Brad, you've been involved in both formal and informal mentor-mentee arrangements, which I think is amazing and so valuable to both of you. In fact, training actually comes under your arm at National Pharmacies, doesn't it? In the Fulham Centre, Training Centre. I'd love to hear what your views are and what you think is one of the most important lessons that you've got from being a mentor, or even what you've got from being a mentee.
So probably as a leader of an organisation, I think Alexei touched on that point nicely. Formal and informal. You can drive a lot of these programs formally, but if people are not ready to receive information or engage in the relationship, it's not going to work. So I like the way that we've mentioned there that you can have formal and informal programs. Some people will sign up for those kind of relationships, but I guess from my perspective, the most successful ones are where you both find each other. Be prepared to have meetings with mentees and mentors, and if the relationship doesn't work, be prepared to walk away. Don't continue to flog a dead horse, because you'll probably find that if the trust isn't there, then the conversation doesn't flow, and that real sense of getting valuable feedback and preparedness to act won't be there.
Yeah.
Like any trial and error, try many and you'll land on a few. And over time, sorry, I'm just getting rid of that. I think that's it's actually a really good thing to practice and experience as well. I've been doing that for probably 20 years, and where you start is quite a little more, agricultural than the way you can get towards the end, as the relationships can become fulfilling and efficient.
Yeah, beautiful. And so for any of our listeners or people that have tuned in today that are leaders and they are looking for a mentor or mentee experience, how do they go about that? What would you recommend? Someone doesn't come and knock on your door, do they?
Sure. Okay. So you can, in terms of any mentor or mentee, start with your organisation. Yep. If you're not connected with your HR team, become connected. Talk to the HR leaders in your business. And what we have is what we call our SLT, Senior Leadership Team, which we invite anybody in the organisation to come and connect with us to talk about any issues of any level. So, both Clint and Alexei were talking earlier about being open to talk to anybody in the organisation. I think that's key today. That whole line management, hierarchical kind of view of the past, is not very useful these days. I find that building trust, and I think I've said to you before, Ali, one of my rules or whatever that I go by is, you don't have to know all the answers. Nobody likes to know it all. Let's all face that. No. So be prepared to listen in direct proportion of your ears to mouth ratio. So, I find that with so many stores, and we've got probably 700-800 employees in our retail business, you don't have to come up with all the answers. I just simply get in the car, visit the stores, and I just ask, how are things going? How are we doing? What do you need? And your next 3-year plan is probably sitting there right in front of you. So when you engage that way, and I'd call that an informal, I've got many good informal relationships with store managers that are prepared to send you an email, pick up the phone. What are we doing right now? It's great during this crisis. Has the leadership team thought about this? Has the leadership team thought about that and were able to engage informally that way. So, yeah.
Get the solutions from the people that are doing the
Oh,
business.
and people love it, you know. And one example, and I don't know whether we'll touch on it, but, you know, we wanted to recognise all of our employees for doing their, you know, we've got 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. stores. We were going to send out a basket of goodies from a supplier. You know, that's a really nice thing to do. But before we did, we just engaged with a few of the store managers to say, what would you like us, you know, how we want to recognise you for what you're doing. And they said, look, don't send us anything. Just give us some money, because we've got lots of local businesses in our area that are really struggling and we want to engage with them. So if we could have some money to go and buy coffees and donuts and cakes or whatever, we'll engage the local businesses. And that's gone down a real treat. So, you know, that's just one very small, simple example of when you're trying to do the right thing, you can actually engage people and get a much better result.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example of your member-owned and community-focused business as well. Obviously, that has those values filter down through your staff, where yes, you could send us something, but what would actually really help is if we could start supporting the community around us as well. So I think that's amazing what National Pharmacies is doing there. Thanks for that, Brad. So Clint, at Waterpro, I know that building relationships and trust with your teams is something that's so important to you. In fact, you've got a bit of a mission around connections. But what I would like to know is, what sorts of development opportunities do your staff have at Waterpro and Railways and Lawn Hub?
Our business is, I guess, quite small. The 2 locations, Waterpro's got a team of 14 and Railways is a team of 10. So from a development opportunity, it could be seen that there's not a lot of opportunity for growth. The businesses are growing quite fast. So there's an opportunity for growth, but there's not necessarily structure there for an assistant to move into a management role and that kind of thing.
Succession planning.
Yeah, because the roles aren't there. I mean, it's my intention to grow the company to $100 million of annual turnover. So with that's going to bring another, 375 required team members over the next 50 years, depending on how long it takes me to do this. So there's going to be opportunity there. I think at the moment it's more because it's such an intimate team, and we're still operating in store because we have to, similar to probably pharmacy, like people come in and buy things. We do deliver, but my guys can't work from home. They can't stock shelves from home. They can't, serve customers. They could serve customers like this, but it's not, the society's not ready for that. So most of that succession planning or that mentor-mentee relationship or that training is still done hand-to-hand or face-to-face, which is what I love. And sadly, I guess the new restrictions around COVID-19 have made it a little bit harder, but it's still there.
Yeah.
So.
Great. And so this is for you as well, Clint. Excuse me. So with the 2 businesses, or 3 with Lawn Hub that you're running, and they're opposite ends of city, town, going south. When I'm talking about leadership, and I know we had a discussion about Lighthouse leadership, but what does actually leadership mean to you, and how do you show up for your teams across multi-locations?
So firstly, leadership for me, I guess, is setting an example and leading by example. And so I show up at each location regularly. It's been a challenge because we've split all locations up. So Railway staff members and Waterpro staff members can't interact with each other. They can't go to each location. We've got a 3rd location here in Kent Town where we've got all our administration and IT and media. They're not allowed to interact with each other in case we did have a case like National Pharmacies where we had a positive test for COVID-19, that we would shut everything down. So I'm trying to find balance between not being, the epicenter of a pandemic shutdown and me contaminating my whole company, and also still rocking up in some cases because I'm a required team member. So Railways had issues with staff that weren't able to work for a period because they were on the other side of the border before they came back. And when you've got a team of 10, we run a 7-day-a-week business, which I don't know if National Pharmacies fit into that same, you're trying to rotate a roster on a team of, so we've got 10 employed people. We lost one straight away because he's 80 years old. So he's at home, much to his disgust. And then we lost another one who was across the border. So he went into lockdown. And then we've had, as people have become unwell, they've gone for longer periods of time because we have to be more respectful of what they might be unwell with. So I guess my leadership style is to be there and be doing it. It's not going to serve me as well as the company grows, but right now it's perfect because the company's small enough that I can be there and set an example. And then obviously, like Brad was mentioning before, people are going to come to me, or I'm going to see it firsthand that this store is struggling with X, Y, and Z. The Waterpro Railways are two very different businesses. The demographic inside the stores are completely different. There's so much difference. So it's been quite interesting, but being there is probably the best thing for me from a leadership standpoint.
Yeah, awesome. I think showing up's always a good way to start
Yeah.
there. So in terms of your own leadership style, do you have someone or many someones that you follow? Do you have a book that you've read? What is it that you model your leadership off of?
So the 12 immutable laws that we talked about before were taken from Mike Michalowicz's book, The Pumpkin Plan.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very valuable book for anyone that I guess it's probably for any stage of business, to be honest. I read that. I went through a period where I read a lot of books. Well, I don't read books. I listen to the audio, but I listened to a lot of books, probably 40 or 50 books over the period of a year. And then I felt like I got the gist of the entire world's books. There's only so many books the world can have. And I think we've run out. So that's it now. In saying that, I'll probably write a book and be one of the million. But you'll see Gary V stuff all here.
Yeah.
Gary V's style is probably most in line with mine, and I think it wasn't so much that I was necessarily learning from him. It was more that watching him and engaging with his content gave me permission to continue to be me. I think for a lot of it, you read a book and then you change your leadership style because the book says that you should do this. I preferred that by listening to Gary V. I was like, hang on. I know what I'm doing. I just need to do it. So, but there's heaps of books, and there's the Pumpkin Plan book was really good. Mike Michalowicz is a good writer, he reads his own books as well, and so does Gary Vee. All his books are good. So,
yep. Very good. I think that's super valid. So yeah, there's definitely no one size fits all when it comes to leadership. And I know Lex and I had a conversation about this just yesterday around picking and choosing the bits that work and throw away the bits that don't. And sometimes even your own leadership style can be born from the things that you don't want to be, which is really probably a lot easier to identify with as well. So to all our leaders that are listening, there is no one set right way to do it. You've got to do you, find the clarity and create your own leadership vision, and then just carry on and you do you. Yeah. Hashtag. So one thing that I talk about a lot on my socials and through my emails and when I'm talking to leaders is the fact that we're literally living through history at the moment. So I'll try and stick clear of the words unprecedented, crisis and pivot, because I think we're overusing them and using them in the wrong context. But what I am actually finding remarkable at the moment is the fact that we're making history right now. We're always making history, but this is probably going to get in the books, and generations from now will be looking back. And I think there's actually something really remarkable about the fact that we get to witness this time in our lives. So whenever there's change or whenever there's crisis or something that we need to relook at, and it can be a global pandemic, or it could be something that's much, much smaller and much more closer to your own organisation. But it does give us a really good opportunity to stop, sit back and actually relook at things that we've been doing. The biggest, I guess, blocker to any change is it's the way we've always done things. And the entire country and the entire world has been given a chance now to stop and relook at how we're doing everything, and how we're running our business, how we're running our teams, how we're communicating. So with everything that's recently happened, Lex, this is of course a COVID-19 related question. Now that you're working remotely, is there anything that's sort of radical that you're doing now as part of Comunet, or what's the silver lining that's come out of this?
Look, it feels hard to talk about that at the moment because we've had the luxury of being an essential player ourselves. We provide tech support to a series of aged care facilities, a series of hospitals, and to one of the health authorities in the state. So we've had busier months than we'd seen for months previously. So that's been our own little silver lining. But interestingly, it's been some of the cultural conversations. We're an open plan, co-located office. And so you think that drives a behavioral piece that says everybody talks to each other. We're one team. We don't have business development team. We don't have sales targets. We just work together for the benefit of the business. But what's been really interesting to identify is by using tools remotely as the primary comms, I've actually started to see more pockets of cross-team engagement and collaboration happen than was happening in the office. And I think on reflection, it's that in the office, and Brad, you made the comment earlier that you would stand up over your desk and talk to someone next to you because that's the physical location you're in. And so that was almost causing an isolation from other teams in the office, even though we're all open plan and we have a shared lunchroom. This type of conversation has meant that all teams are getting together regularly. People are starting to converse, and I'm seeing through the chatter and the conversations we're having on Teams that people I'd never identified as up and coming in admin roles or in other parts of the organization are suddenly appearing and pushing boundaries and driving change and reviewing things that aren't management, leadership, team leader led. We have quite a flat hierarchy, and we've appointed practice leads and other people, so you don't have to become a management to get authority and the ability to lead cross teams. But it hasn't always been those people. It's been this really interesting hybrid world where having a culture that allows people to speak up and talk in an online format is almost the old water cooler, or a long time ago, the old smoko out the back, is by not mediating it, not trying to curate it, not trying to control it, you've actually ended up seeing a lot more open, fluid conversations. That's meant we've delivered telehealth services to some acquired brain injury people. We've been able to help out with some aged care facilities doing network and work for their people in care without having to be on site. There's been all these little, and I don't like the word pivots, but these little adaptations to our business that are just good people seeing opportunities and having a much more open way to talk about them. And just use them and go for them and give them a shot, like a mentor-mentee. For Brad, if they don't work, kill them early. But you really can drive some quick change if you're willing to open your ears and your eyes to screen and listen.
Yeah, beautiful. So collaboration on steroids. I love it.
Yeah.
It's so good. So we've got about 15 minutes left. If anyone who's listening would like to ask the panel a question, in the chat box, if you can just type in question and I'll unmute you in just a moment. But before we do wrap things up, if you could give up-and-coming leaders, or even yourself as a young up-and-coming leader, 3 top tips. Brad, what would be your 3 top tips to give to yourself or to other leaders who are looking to learn and grow themselves?
So I think, Ali, the first one is really what I said earlier, which is you don't need to have all the answers. Be prepared to listen, and you'll find the gold nugget out there. That's certainly the first one. Always about communication. Whenever you're facing either a crisis or things aren't working in your business, the first thing you do is, have I been clear enough in setting out my expectations, or has the business been clear enough about what's expected of people? The first thing you'll hear in a crisis is, well, we don't know what's going on because no one's telling us what to do. So the whole repeated challenge throughout my career has always been around communication.
Yeah.
Particularly with certain teams, we used to have if we have a weekly or a daily meeting and everyone's like, yeah, things are going well. Oh, things are going well. Let's not have the meetings now. Let's push them out to weekly or monthly. And then all of a sudden, within 2 or 3 months, people are going, identifying issues and problems, and you can trace it back to the moment where you started to decrease your communication. So I think everyone here today has talked about the daily meetings, the critical 15 minutes to focus on key issues of the day, not self-indulgent stuff. But so I could say to people, definitely keep that up. That's the most important thing you can do as a leader. That will never change. That will never go out of fashion. How you choose to engage the communication will, but that's just a golden rule. And then there's so many, Ali. I'll say this in terms of, you could probably look at my hair now, it's getting a little bit right, but I'm really enjoying today because my view, and I like the whole 360-degree feedback piece, that's something that I engage in. We don't push that in the organisation. I'm one of the few people who do it, both informally. I've approached people within my team or within my direct reports team, given them permission to tell me the truth, all those sorts of things. you're never too old to learn. And I'm really getting some great tips out of today's conversation from the panel here. So you just don't need to think that at some point in your career, I've got all the answers. Be prepared to talk to people, learn, take the ideas, reshape them, or as Clint says, call them for what they are. I've got this from here. I think transparency, and so finally, my last one is transparency, which goes through to how we've also dealt with our crisis at one of our stores. And I think it was Clint who talked about the 12 rules help you under pressure. We have a senior leadership team. We set up a team creed or a team, kind of statement that reflects that when you're under pressure, and we've done this through some of our management studies, you see these behaviours, undesirable behaviours appear in leaders when they're under pressure. So this team creed or whatever we want to call it reminds people in a crisis how to do that. And the key thing is transparency. And on the side, a little bit, which it's just a bit of a hobby horse of mine. I like someone, we said about, I don't like the fact that there are people out there profiteering in a crisis. They're using this as a great opportunity to jack prices up, stop their promotions, all that sort of stuff. I'd say to all of you out there who deal with customers are not stupid. They can tell what you're doing very, very quickly and you lose them forever. So resist the temptation to profiteer in a crisis.
Perfect. Love it. Yeah, no, there's some absolute gold nuggets there. So if you didn't have a chance to write those down, we'll recap at the end and I'll send this out. But I think, something that you hit on, and this is certainly something we practice at Made for More. And one of my beliefs is that you're never too old to learn. So where continual learning, I think, is the key to life, and being able to manage through a crisis and manage yourself and manage your teams is always, always learning. There is no end to it. So Clint, your top 3 tips, if you could go back in time and tell yourself or any upcoming leaders that you would like to share your top 3 tips with.
It's funny, Brad probably had similar issues as me. I've probably got about 400 tips for leaders, and
your top 3.
Because I'm so competitive, I'm like, well, I want my top 3 to be the best. But
that's why you're not going last.
So Alexei can come home strong and make us all look horrible. The first thing that came to mind, and something that I've really been focused on for at least probably 24 months, is to don't outsource your judgment. Now, that doesn't mean don't listen to people, and it doesn't mean don't take advice. Obviously, Brad mentioned before about using your ears and your mouth in the same ratio that they have been given to you, and that's something I have a massive issue with. And obviously, as you know, Ali, I have a coach that's helping me with such things. But I've recently bought another business, and I was given a lot of advice from people that are very intelligent, that I pay a lot of money to give me advice. And for a period, I took their advice and against my judgment did something that I wasn't happy with, and it caused a lot of anxiety. And it got to a point where I just had to make my own calls. And if you're a leader, especially if you're the actual owner, if you're the owner, it's all on you. So you better be comfortable with your decisions. If you're a leader, you've been put in that position because people believe in you and they trust you. So they want you to make your decisions. So make your decisions. Like, don't outsource your judgment.
Yeah,
so that's number
great.
1.
Yeah.
I had transparency as a note before. Brad obviously stole that one off of my notes.
Well,
but
that's already taken now.
Yes, I won't use that one. But it was very much about empowerment and delegation. I think that something that I struggled with a lot when I was a younger leader, especially when I was leading people that were older than me, is that I struggled with, communication with them, but delegating to people above me from an age standpoint or a time in the organization standpoint. The same situation, if it's your business or you've been put in a position of leadership, there's a reason that you're there. And so I think people need to be comfortable to empower the staff that they lead, and then also delegate to them, and then just trust that it's been done. Too many people worry about delegating a task to someone and then following it up. I delegate so much every day and I never follow it up. And if 10% of it doesn't get done, I don't care. Like, it's just, we're moving so fast and we're moving forward, and we just I have to let some stuff fall off sometimes. So I can't worry about it. Otherwise I'll go crazy. And then the third one's probably in line with the values. So I think it's really important to set a clear values for your company and what you expect from your people, clear direction for where the company is going, and then communicate that regularly. And that's something that we didn't do well at the start. We do now. It was interesting, Alexei mentioned before that they don't have sales targets. Is that you don't have KPIs around sales?
No, nothing individual. We have some organizational targets, but
okay, so we don't either.
Nobody has a single target.
So we don't have individual targets either. We only have company targets, and everyone gets bonus based on the company success. And if the company doesn't hit the numbers, So I was like, well, that's interesting. No. We have the targets. We communicate them daily, and we have a similar stand-up meeting where we communicate them daily so that we can succeed together. So I guess communicate your values and your targets and your requirements clearly and regularly would be my third tip.
Beautiful. I love that. My mother used to always say, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them proportionately.
Yeah, I think my mum did too, but I never listened.
Yeah. Whoops. And I think you mentioned here about setting your clear values for your organisation or your team, but I think something, and I know that you do this already, is actually setting some clear values for yourself. So what do you stand for as a leader, and what do you stand against as a leader, and how does that drive your own integrity and how you how you perform in your role?
Yep.
Love it. Thanks, Clint. And Lex, your top 3 to young Alexei or any upcoming leaders?
Well, thanks, Clint and Brad. I'm going to try to take a slightly different tack and focus on individual kind of pieces here rather than organizational leadership in building yourself up for wherever you go. Look, the first one's very similar to where Brad started, is stay human and humble. One of my mentors when I first came into real senior leadership as a CE, I remember speaking to him and he said, the crazy thing you're going to see is with the change of title, all of a sudden you're the smartest person in the room. And I asked, what does that mean? And he said to me, he goes, well, you're not, but a lot of people will act like you are. When you say something, they won't question it. They will go and do it. You may be looking for them to question you, but if you move to that world where you start making statements or you speak early, you're not the last to speak, people will take a perception of, well, this is the CEO, this is the senior leader, they're the smartest person in the room, and they go. But we're not. We're just different people. We've got a different career path. We've had different education, and we think maybe in different ways. But really maintain that humility and be willing to ask questions. And sometimes after the meeting, probe people for those questions if you feel like they've just listened and done what you said. It's not a great place to be if that continues, because you will make mistakes and no one will pick you up on them until they're too late. There's number 1. Number 2 for me is a little bit of that make sure you're comfortable with who you are as a leader and where you want to go. I don't have a book that I refer to. I have a series that I've read, but a lot of, as I was making a decision to apply for a senior CEO role years ago, was what don't I want to be as a CEO? And I had a few real key guidelines for myself. One was I don't want to live up to the old story of it's lonely at the top. I'm a person who needs relationships with my teams and with suppliers and partners. And so I've made a decision to continue that way, for better or worse, to deal with the challenges as they come. But I was comfortable that was who I wanted to be. I didn't want to be the aloof CEO in an office that everyone was scared of. Now, that was my view, but I would suggest that you think hard about that next career opportunity, whatever seniority is, and go, right, is it for me? Or am I doing it because somebody else thinks I should do it? Been talking to one of my mentees recently who's in a finance management role, who's been looking at a career path of CFO. Now, I wasn't in a finance path, and so we've had a lot of conversations around, do you really know what that role means? What type of CFO? Is it a strategic CFO that wants to then become a company secretary, or is it a CFO that wants to just be in a bigger organization? Actually, let's go and find a few people in the market through CPA Australia or through CFOs that you can have a mentor relationship with, and really understand that before you push yourself there. Getting promoted or pushing yourself to a point of failure is never going to be happy and healthy life in the end of it all. And the third one is, I guess, a little bit of a challenge for the people who may not be as extroverted as everyone else, is take the opportunities when they're presented to you and say yes. It's not fake it till you make it. It's not as flippant as that. But I was talking to another, not a formal mentee, but somebody who took me out for lunch and asked me a question about how they would get to their next step because they wanted to be a CEO. And I was able to pinpoint an exact position with them. And I said, look, I was in a conversational thread with you couple of months ago, and somebody invited you to speak at a conference, small conference in Adelaide in a startup community, and your answer was, "Oh, no, look, I'm going to come along, but I'm not sure that everyone will want to hear what I've got to say, so I'll be there, and if you want to ask me questions, great." And I turned back to him and I said, "Look, if you want to be the CEO, when somebody invites you to that through all levels of discomfort, say yes, find your story. Some people will get value from it, some people won't, but take those opportunities."
Beautiful. That is awesome. I love that. Lex, do the things that scare you. I live by that as well. If it makes me feel a little bit nervous, I am there. I think what was interesting is there's actually a common thread that all three of you had around finding people, find your tribe. There's that saying around you're the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And if those people can't give you the feedback and I guess not the criticism, but, be able to give you an insight into how you're behaving or performing, then you need to find some better 5 people.
Ali, I think so. I'm just reading the chat, Derek. That's a very good summary of that. You don't have to fake it. Just say yes and be vulnerable and listen to that feedback. People will respect you more for that than to try to put on a marketing position and create something that you're not an expert in.
Yeah. Beautiful. That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Derek. Definitely don't fake it till you make it. Hi, Sue. So that pretty much wraps us up. We're 1 minute over. Do you guys have a few minutes if there's any questions?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Any questions from attendees there? Let me just quickly scroll. Nope. I think we are all good. So thank you again. Thank you, Alexei. Thank you, Clint. Thank you, Brad. Sophie said, fantastic panel. Thanks, Sophie. You've been fantastic too. Thanks, Amy. That's awesome. But thank you so much for your time today. I've really appreciated it and really enjoyed getting to understand sort of what makes you tick from a leadership perspective and hearing how all of these things that you're doing in your own businesses and how you're doing them in real life. I think it's great. Thanks for your top tips. I'll email those out to everyone if you're happy with that. And if you just wanted to say goodbye, Tony, thank you. Say goodbye to everyone and I will wrap these things up. So thank you all.
Thank you, Ali, and thanks everyone for being here. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
See you all.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.